morning everyone. This is the Prime Minister and today we shall be discussing about the House supporting the use of OnlyFans to make money for the people. Now firstly I would like to define what the House is. The House according to us is the internet community in 2030. The words use is defined as making adult content on OnlyFans to make money for the people. Now, in this term, there is a word known as adult content. Adult content basically means explicit and suggestive content that comes on OnlyFans, which will be viewed by the other adult people for their needs, and they will view this as a normal thing in 2030. People as a definition will be the people who are using the internet and are above the legal age to step into explicit content, as well as the people who are watching this content. Basically the internet community that has access to the adult industry. Status quo during 2030 will be that there is a standardization of ID cards across the world similar to USA's social security number, right? So the basic advantages of why OnlyFans is a very good source to make money is because adult industry is one of the largest money making industries in today's date, and it provides employment to the people, it generates huge income, it provides financial independence to the people, and even it empowers genders across the floor. There is creative freedom on this platform wherein the people can create, and this platform can be used for other purposes which are being discussed, like this platform can be used for educational purposes. In 2020 people were discussing that they need sex education in the education system. So OnlyFans can be a means to promote sex education. It can be a means to introduce gender fluidity. It can be a means to produce aids against body dysmorphia, which many people have. It can empower, and it can also help address taboo topics, which were taboo topics in India in 2020 or in the late 2010s or in the early 2000s. Making money is a very surface level thing that we should be addressing, because money basically solves mostly all the problems that will be faced by people in 2030 and thereon. Moving on to other advantages that OnlyFans can have is that there will be cultural representation as well on the internet. There will be other models that, if the opposition may argue that addiction can be a problem, so there can be regular checks that will be installed in OnlyFans. And moreover, I would like to state that OnlyFans empowers entrepreneurship as well. Because the adult content industries can generate contraceptive industries, they can generate contraceptive industries, lingerie industries, and many other medical industries as per se. I would like to distinguish between a porn industry and an OnlyFans industry. A porn industry basically is somewhere porn actors are not actually free to work at their own will. They are exploited But in an OnlyFans, people are free to do work at their own free will. And they are putting out content in the whole world at their own free will. But there will be a model that is being suggested which will have regular checks. Moving on to the model which we want to propose is alright. So the model is basically that there will be addition.
Point of an
Alright.
You said that you will use OnlyFans to represent culture, right? How are you going to do that?
Cultural representative. There are many cultures. There are many cultures that exist that practice intimate stuff in different ways. You might have seen the Kama Sutras or the Indian culture that exists that practices sex in different ways, right? So if at all that those things come to light, people will be knowledgeable enough to know that alright, such stuff also exists, and will be taken aback by humankind that even such stuff can exist in the world. That's how we represent culture. Alright? Because procreation in different cultures is practiced differently, right? You take the Africans, for example, you take the Mongolians, you take the Colombians, for example. It is just not so, it will empower sex education as well, right? So, moving on to the model, if at all the opposition argues that people can be addicted to such explicit content, we would like to reinstate the fact that we would like to draw parallels to video game industries in 2020 having 8-time checks. Alright. Take it. Fine. Can I just conclude in 2 minutes? 30 seconds. Alright. There will be additional in-time counters, and we will establish self-training bots to so that the content that is being uploaded is in regular checks and it does not disrupt the generation for future purposes, and it will educate the masses about a stuff that is so normal and not a taboo anymore. Thank you.
Instead of opposition, can could we know when the taps are?
After the 4th minute has passed and after the 6th minute has passed.
4th.
The House has proposed that the debate is taking place in an internet community in the year 2030. However, they have made many unreasonable assumptions. They have all stated that culture will become more free, gender fluidity will be promoted. However, this is completely unrealistic and is the Western approach. One can also argue that it is the Eastern approach that will win, and Islamic countries such as Saudi Arabia or Iran, where gender fluidity is banned, that might become mainstream, or in countries such as Russia. And since they have pointed out that this debate is taking place in an internet community, it also forces me to bring up the point of the dark web and pedophiles who are present on the internet and who might misuse the content of the creators by blackmailing them or illegally selling it. As the debate is taking place in the future, it also forces me to highlight instances that have already happened in the past. As it's the internet community, I feel we can take examples from all around the globe. In 2022, a Manhattan couple had kidnapped 3 teenage girls at gunpoint and had made sex videos and adult content and had uploaded it to OnlyFans. Even though they were further arrested, this content is still available in the internet today and has not yet been wiped out. A 14-year-old girl from India had used her grandmother's passport in order to create an OnlyFans account. However, we must also they have proposed a model where the world is too idealistic and that every world is a first world country. with a properly functioning police system. However, if we take countries who are second world like India, where sex workers, there are still forced sex workers in areas such as Sunargachi and Gulabganj. Till now, it is a little easier for the police to track them as sex is practiced physically. However, if they are promoting OnlyFans to make money and as business, how they have not proposed any way for the police to track them? Or how do we know that the creator is actually doing this of our own free will and is not being held at gunpoint? They have said that they would use. They have stated that they would use self-training bots in order to age verify the creators. However, they have not. However, it would even then, if this is being implemented in 2030, it would take some time for them to start actually learning on how to recognize fake IDs. And even today, the use of fake IDs to get into clubs and driving licenses is rampant. So it's a reasonable assumption that by 2030 this would increase even more. They have also suggested that they would standardize ID cards. However, this is I would require this point to be moot. And even in 2020, each country is after each other, and it's nearly impossible for there to be standardized ID cards. And they gave the example of US, but I don't think using US, a first world country, to compare with the rest of 190 other countries in the world is reasonable.
POI. Do you know that the United States is not the only country that is discussing gender fluidity in the UN? There are 72 plus genders that are being discussed, and in 2030, if at all at this length the discussion is happening, in 2030 that would be more. So why are you making false assumptions that it would go to the east if the debates are happening on gender fluidity so much at rampant state?
You said the debates are happening in so much 72 countries, I believe you said.
72 genders.
72
right
genders are proposed by how many countries? That you have not stated till now. And even though the number of countries who might propose this will be high, the population, which is more on the eastern side, eastern countries you have failed to mention the Islamist countries such as India or even Afghanistan, countries such as Russia and China, who are against content like this, who are against gender fluidity. Being against gender fluidity might become mainstream. You have failed to address that part over there. And also he has failed to address how he will handle pedophiles or someone who uses explicit content to blackmail other people on the internet.
Point of information, the dark web was in 2012 addressed by the CIA, and many documents and files were taken down by the CIA. So by 2030, I believe the dark web will be addressed in the bots.
Making arguments and ask questions.
There wasn't a question.
There was no question, you can ignore that and continue.
Okay. Yeah, and one of the most things is the topic of fake IDs has been brought up, and they have stated that large money, OnlyFans would become a large money-making industry in the future. However, this can easily lead to people being manipulated, brainwashing 13-year-old, 14-year-old girls to use fake IDs and becoming sort of pimps online in order to get content to fill their own pockets. This motion that has been passed by the House today is unrealistic, and it's not possible to implement it on such a large scale. And even the world population right now is 8 billion, and out of them around 6 billion people live in the East who, in a generalized manner, oppose ideas of gender fluidity and adult content to be promoted. And they have not stated how they are planning to change the mindset of the masses over there. Understand that? In conclusion, I would like to state that the House has just taken an idealistic approach to the world and has accepted the westernization view of the world while ignoring the masses and providing practical and reasonable solutions to what can be achieved. Thank you.
I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Starting off directly by answering the leader of opposition who pointed out so many points. I fail to understand how the assumption of taking everything to be the East, whereas the East has been moving towards what are the equality rights. You saw in Saudi Arabia way before 2020 that different rights were being given. So I do not understand how the opposition is unreasonably thinking that the East would take over the world in the period of 7 years from where we have data. And thus the government's proposition of 2030 being a free world community with equality holds. Moving on, as of the point put out about the dark web, it was clearly pointed out that in 2012 the CIA had taken out a lot of stuff, and moving on with advancement in technology that helps all other intelligence agencies on tackling the dark web. In fact, local level police agencies back in 2013 were tackling these issues such where that they need not be considered here. In case of the physical world, which the leader of opposition mentioned, that police can easily track out physical sex work around areas, I would like to remind the leader of opposition that a digital world is much easier to track owing to IP addresses that are available with each device. Additionally, the physical sale actually has other issues involved with it, which include the problems with sexually transmitted diseases and hygiene, all of which can be countered using the OnlyFans subscription model. Additionally, I feel that the opposition did not clearly hear what the Prime Minister has said, because the Prime Minister mentioned in-app selfie checks and IDs for ages and bots for the regular checks on content that was put up. So even if there is someone who's forcing, the content is being checked, and since the ID has been verified, it is very easy to track down those pedophiles, those people who are causing this to happen. Additionally, the opposition seems to have a very generalized idea of the world, wherein everything goes back to countries where monarchy has existed and there have been no free wills. I would like to remind the opposition that the world as a whole is democratic, and the world is where everyone has their own free will. This thus causes people to have benefits from OnlyFans accounts, such as financial independence, empowerment, their freedom of choice of work, and they can utilize their creativity. Additionally, this gives them flexible working hours and a good income source, which they, if not during not full time, they can actually utilize this part time as an additional source of income. This also reduces exploitation, as our Prime Minister already pointed out, over the problem of the porn industry, wherein the actors are not out of free will and their content is actually not their own. Herein, the creator can choose what content to put, and they have full access on their content. This also empowers not just the creator but also the consumer, and they have their free will of choosing. You might come and oppose and say that the youth will be exploited using this industry. However, this will actually support the youth. In 2030, it will go on and educate them about sexuality, so that people actually know about the spectrum of genders that we have, and it is not just limited to the two sexes assigned at birth. It leads you to a better understanding of equality all across the world. Moving on, this helps us against all kinds of discrimination, be it on race, be it on sex, be it on genders, be it on religion, because you will have no say, you won't have any tags attached to the account. Additionally, again countering the point that the leader of opposition talked about standardized ID cards, I would like to remind that in 2030, as our Prime Minister said, standardizing of ID cards is not an issue. The US before the 21st century had SSN. India in 2023 had begun the process of standardizing birth certificates as a medium for registrations at places. So the example that the leader of opposition took of India as a second world country, although the government believes that there are no first world or second world countries, there are developed and developing countries in the world. So I would like to counter the leader of opposition over their discrimination on countries which the internet community does not do. Additionally, it is not westernization of the world, it is actually the free will that people have in their house, and it is this free will of consumers and suppliers that leads to a free market where the forces of the invisible hand work together for an effective price consumption and an effective price decision for the people. This free market actually empowers both consumers, both suppliers and creators in this case to utilize their content as they want to. This empowers all kinds of marginalized communities. Let's say a worker is being discriminated against due to a certain disconformity or due to a certain issue at a specific place. Here, where the worker is himself the entrepreneur or herself or themselves the entrepreneur or the creator, they have the choice to do what they wish to, and this will actually empower the others who belong to a marginalized community of people who do not have access to all kinds of jobs, will get another way to get an income. And adding on to the model that our Prime Minister suggested, I'm sure by 20 rejected 59% of the account applications just using selfie checks. With advancement in technology through artificial intelligence, it is very easy to detect if it is a manipulated account or it is a actual account, and accordingly this, using efficient algorithms, this can be easily sorted, and the problem of exploitation and whatever taboo problems that the opposition has been raising can be dealt with. Thank you.
Start on 3, 2, 1. Greetings everyone. As the deputy leader of the opposition, I would start by countering the points that were stated by the deputy leader of the ruling party. Our deputy prime minister stated that selfie checks can be imposed to solve these problems. But can the prime minister tell us that how these problems have not been solved till now? Because when we talk about the rise of technology in safeguarding these platforms, we should not forget that there would be a rise in the processes to breach these platforms as well. There would be a rise in the technologies of hacking as well as cyber crimes. That would be also improved by the time of 2030. I will be quoting certain examples for the same. A case where that is present in today's forum is that these platforms, when such type of content is provided on these platforms, these are downloaded by the third-party applications which are unmonitored by the government time and again. Quoting for the example, I will say the name Telegram as a platform that has been using these contents for long. It's sure that OnlyFans would regulate these platforms in a very strict manner. But what action would be taken against those third-party applications that are numerous in number circulating all around the web, and no actions are being taken against them? Talking on the issue of the minors, once such a case of a minor and such type of obscene content of a minor is released in public, the life of that minor is ruined. Quoting for that example, I have the example of a girl named Shubhasri Sahu, whose content was leaked all over the internet, and she has been continuously, her account has been violated, banned time and again, and just because of a manipulation of a kind of, she wanted fame. Because these kind of platforms, they provide easy access to money at a very young age for certain people. The ruling party says that they would provide strict checks and measures to not promote these kind of actions. But what would happen in a certain case happens time and again? Would they take responsibility for such type of actions? I must now shift my focus to stating the negative impacts that these kind of platforms have done to the masses time and again. Firstly, it has been shown that the users, the content creators, as well as the users who use the content of the OnlyFans, they both have, it has been shown that they both face mental issues as well as physical and psychological imbalance in their states as per the survey of NCRB. Belief in dignity of an individual and sanctity of the human personality and equality of rights, these are all breached in this process. We cannot,
the deputy leader of opposition mentioned that equality of rights is breached. However, this actually provides economic equality. How does the deputy leader propose that?
Okay, I must answer to this one. When we consider economic equality, we must not see money as just money as a measure. These platforms have been used for sex trafficking, for multiple other criminal records by a certain group of people that are around the world, and these people use minors, juvenile people, as well as easily manipulative people to make their accounts. These people can use their accounts to promote contents of those people on these platforms, and we don't have any regulation against them. Secondly, the ruling party talked a lot about economic impacts and the sexual education that this platform might provide. But I must say, it is not a big issue in current scenario. We have a lot of income sources for our country, and we are easily supporting our country in that way. There are businesses, there are platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and other platforms like Facebook that have social creators, that have these creators. And the older model of OnlyFans was also supportive for the supply of these kind of content only. But rather the model changed to an adult forum just because it was gaining a capitalist investment, it was gaining more profit from these kind of juvenile users, and OnlyFans has only deviated its shift after that time being. Also, when they talked about the cultural and traditional values, I have failed to see whether our country supports these kind of cultural values, because our Indian Penal Code never supported these kind of arguments. Talking about the literature, our Indian Penal Code has always said in the section 292 that literature, fiction and art supports these obscene content can be obliged in these manner, because these are a work of fiction, not real life. They cannot harm anyone's real life. When you talk about a work of fiction and you compare it by comparing it with selling someone's identity, selling someone's private content, that is a very different point that I would like to state. The 2020 report from the Avery Center found that 34% OnlyFans creators reported negative mental effects like depression, anxiety, shame and low self-esteem that has been seen in USA. And when one person violates the right of another person or value of the society, that breaches the right of a whole individual. Here I would like to quote how I would like to explain this pointer is that one person is obliged to share her private content, but if a certain individual is getting affected by that content, where I am talking about the juveniles who are seeing this content, who are consuming this content, that can be a breach of that person as well, because he is not allowed to see those content. And it is very easy for them to access this content on the web through the Google ads, through multiple sources where these are promoted, because these are heavily advertised, these are heavily promoted all over the web, and just because of this capitalist measure, no strict actions have been taken till now. Of course, strict regulations can be taken on these platforms, which is very rightful decision of the government. But I must suggest that one in a 100 false case cannot be neglected, because it's not a very small issue that we should consider. That if one of the two scapegoats escape, we should let it neglect and we should focus on AI, because AI is not accurate and there are still false cases. Thank you.
Said in the last statement, and I quote, that certain improvements can be made on the platform of OnlyFans, but 1 in 100 cases cannot be neglected. While I'm not certainly proposing the idea that 1 in 100 cases should be neglected, I'm certainly proposing the idea that OnlyFans is a model base which can be used for promotion, while I certainly agree that there are certain disadvantages and exploitations that are being practiced on the certain platform, which is relevant for all platforms across all online communities. Any platform, for example, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, not only for content creation, but also any social media platform that is existent. Uh, while our certain Prime Minister has already quoted a certain infrastructure that needs to be implemented in the whole idea of usage of funds to make money for people, I didn't certainly find a single fact by the opposition that certainly provides some basic evidence that OnlyFans cannot be improved and can harm the society in the long run. While certainly would like to quote the opposition leader who has said that security breaches, which will be very affected, we can easily counter security breaches like all the other platforms that are being implemented at a global level by usage of important security concerns like selfie checks and usage of SSN, which has been quoted by our deputy leader. It is a very prevalent idea that is being implemented, very prevalent infrastructure of security which has been applied already in the United States. Okay, sex trafficking is possible through OnlyFans. Would the opposition like to explain this point a little bit more? Because certainly the model proposed by our Prime Minister does not have any certain measures which can help sex trafficking as a whole to be promoted through our platform. While OnlyFans certainly increase the financial independence of the creators, it also leads to the empowerment of choice and the empowerment of creativity and the development of entrepreneurship, which has been mentioned by our Prime Minister over here. I would certainly like to oppose the points of the opposition leader, who said that 6 billion people are in the East and only 2 billion people exist in the West. While he has already assumed that the views of the East are more rudimentary and needs to be implemented and carried forward by our future generations. I certainly don't understand that point. As the world is moving towards a more equitative and liberal society, as we have already proposed the motion, wouldn't it be very necessary to provide equality amongst all forums, amongst all countries, among all classes of people, among all gender to exist in this great society? I would certainly like to counter the point of the Prime Minister by the opposition leader by a simple analogy that OnlyFans is not just a platform. It is environment which provides the creators to use their talents and create and present their bodies in such a way that just goes beyond the mere commodification of one's body, which the opposition failed to address. Creators not only craft unique narratives, which are often very complex, but also they challenge societal norms, and which is a very effective way of expressing their individuality as a person. We should not just focus on the mass idea that a certain group of people or a certain group of people or a certain religion like Islam might not promote it. While I certainly agree that Islam was the only religion that was practicing triple talaq, not only just a few days ago, which was challenging the fundamental equal rights of women in today's society. So these kinds of illegitimate arguments must not be made. The opposition has failed to understand that the world has already moved towards a subscription-based OnlyFans model, which is widely accepted all over the world. While a certain strata of people are not agreeing with this particular set of values, which might not align with their beliefs or value system, but will not undermine the development of a society and its infrastructure and its economic independence of the people by just focusing on a particular strata of people which might be using their other resources for money generation or for empowerment and feeding of their children and families. Not everybody is as privileged as the people in the Middle East with oil in their land, which must extracted and just sold in the international markets. People need to be independent in today's society, and this is the one way that we can enhance independence and challenge societal norms and reduce exploitation of our people. Exploitation of women was a point raised by our deputy over here, who's busy taking notes, if he can look at me. Okay. I think this is the weakest angle by which you can approach this OnlyFans subscription model, because the exploitation of women was done way before OnlyFans existed. It was done through porn, which is a very wide industry, and if porn is going to exist, I'd rather be in such a way that is controlled by women and empowers women. Rather, it was being controlled by men who were exploiting women in such a hazardous circumstance. A lot of vague examples from all around the world, which was not related to OnlyFans at all, were quoted by the opposition leader, like the Manhattan couple who were forcing a girl on gunpoint, I would like to say. See, there's a wide spectrum on which we assess things. We are talking about financial independence of millions of people, while you're quoting an example from Manhattan where a person has been held at gunpoint. That is such an illegitimate argument to present in such a wide, broad perspective. And I would like to end by saying that our Prime Minister has presented a very, very, very enhanced and very complex model, which is beyond the understanding of the opposition at this point, and I would like to educate them on this. Thank you.
Good morning to everyone present at the House, the opposition, the leader, and every member of present in the House. I will come as opposition with. I will come to everyone and address all the concerns. First they said that they will impose selfie checks. Right now, I can give you a method which will surpass your selfie check method. Take a person who uses a group of minors for content by kidnapping them, and now for surpassing selfie check, he takes their photo and use it to verification. Now, where is your selfie check? It's over, right? Other point that comes that prove that it is harmful.
We stated selfie is protected.
You asked that it is. You asked for the proof that it is harmful. We gave so many examples that it is being harmful. It is harming in mental level. It is harming the society also.
We stated selfie and video call regular checks. So how is regular checks not helping?
He has kidnapped him and kept him with him. He can do the selfie check every time. Then I will come to everyone little by little that our PM said that it represents the cultural representation which our deputy PM, which our deputy leader of opposition countered very successfully by stating that it is a work of fiction and literature which is not equal to the real life. By performing real life actions, they are actually showcasing that yes, it is possible and it will harm the mental health of everyone negatively. And the Indian Constitution also doesn't support that. Then we also give a very good model that instead of using the negative part of the internet, use the positive part to earn money, like use YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. But you said that because why we are suggesting that? Because it is more easy to trace, it is more auditable. As for the OnlyFans goes,
Can't the workflow process from Facebook, Instagram be taken into OnlyFans and then be supported?
why you want to jump from positive side to negative side? I mean, that's the question I want to ask. If you have something good in your hand, why you want to focus on the negative side? It's completely unreasonable from your side. Then you said that the right to equality and the right no, there is one also point that right to freedom of one's individual, if restricting others' freedom, it is not considered freedom. It is what? It shows that you are actually doing something more impractical and imposing others to take some other what should I say, that extreme steps. Other thing that I will like to say that the deputy PM said that digital tracking is easy. What kind of joking argument is that? Digital tracking cannot be easy if used by VPN. If I use VPN, one time I'm at India, then another time I'm at London. How will you jump from here to here? Isn't it completely unreasonable? Now, Freedom Point, I answered that your question. Now, another thing that I want to say that yes, the opposition always try to deviate the point from eastern to from western part to eastern part. What if they don't have anything good? Then why are they playing it then why are they playing it in that portion that eastern thought will prevail, western thought will prevail? We don't know the future, that if the parliament is set up at 2030, we don't know that the eastern thought will prevail or western thought will prevail. But if you can take the assumption that western thought is going to prevail, why cannot we take the example as that eastern thought is going to prevail? Why is it that we are unreasonable? Now, our deputy leader of opposition also said that if you are talking about the content check, then what about the third-party applications like Telegram, Terrabox, which do not have any restriction on checking? Even times the Telegram bans, then another channel opens. Now, what you will do? Nothing. You can't do anything, and you just have to stand there and watch. Now, as a government, you have to keep in mind that you have to make the society better, not push it into obscene side, so that we can look up to everyone and ask that yes, I can look up to them, I can talk to them, they are very good. But instead you are promoting and making the society to go more downhill, which is completely unreasonable. From my side, I want to say that the government is proposing a very, if I would use the word, it would be very bad, but I will just say it in normal terms. The government is possessing very impractical and one of the worst model which humankind is going to witness. What we are proposing is that you should focus on the positive side. By YouTube you can make money, by Facebook you can make money, by Instagram also you can make money, by attracting various sponsorship, by attracting advertisement, not doing obscenity. Now I would like to conclude that we have proposed a very practical model instead of their very dark and demeaning model, and we have countered all their arguments very successfully. Thank you.
So I may now invite your minister.
So in my reply speech, I would first like to make it very clear that both sides, I think in the discussion we have seen that there is a very big distinction between porn and OnlyFans. OnlyFans has shifted its model towards porn. That is the whole purpose of discussion here itself. See, OnlyFans as a platform was to serve for creators to share their separate moments with their subscribers, right? But due to the capitalist approach that it took, in order to support the creators, in order to fill its pockets, it supported the capitalist model. So saying that OnlyFans would not do it again is an unjust justification, because OnlyFans itself wants to promote these kinds of obscenity, these kinds of criminal cases, because it fills its pockets. Second thing is, improvement is not the discussion here. The platform itself is very secure and it's very well targeted. But the thing is, the third-party applications, the criminals, the hackers who use these applications to very easily breach into these circuits and then find the content of those innocent creators and then supply it all over the internet, which cannot be easily regulated. coming on to this topic of the sex trafficking that we raised, that we can capture some innocent juveniles and make their content and circulate it all over the internet. And in that cases, these kinds of obscene contents can result in deterioration of a mind of an individual that can lead to detrimental health of that individual throughout lifetime. For subscription-based model, OnlyFans started with a good model itself, and we know that it is a good platform for content creation. But the major problem here is that why do we need to make a society that sells itself for prostitution? Our country, India, has been a country that have supported prostitution, that have supported these kind of things in Kama Sutra, in certain texts. It's not like something new that our ruling side is stating, that we need to learn how to circulate these kind of things. But these have to be done under certain legislation. These have to be done under certain regulation, that a person should have consent of his body, her body, to sell their personal content or sell their body to a certain person. In that case only we can say that it is legalized. But as per the reports, as per the factual information, we have seen that these persons don't even know, these innocent people don't even know that their content is being circulated all over the internet, and the next day they find out that their whole life is ruined and everyone is seeing them in a negative light and they can't do anything about it. Secondly, coming on to the demographics. The US demographic has suggested that these kinds of platforms have not resulted in anything positive. These content creators go around calling themselves individual creator with money and what of power. But these content creators are heavily mentally disturbed people who cry at nights, who take pills of depression and mental anxiety. And these things only promote time to time because it is an easy measure of earning. And in case this is implemented in the parliament, if it is promoted, then I am very sure that being an easy measure, being a fallacy, being targeted as an easy fish, this would be promoted all over the internet, this would be promoted all over the masses, and there would be no time that our youth would be corrupted and would be transmitted to a society of prostitutes, and no education can save that from the rotting society that would be present. And that's how I would be concluding. Thank you.
To begin with the reply for the government, I would firstly like to state that the opposition in its arguments has been orthodox to say the least. The government has always viewed, the government has always viewed the implication of sexuality and people exploring sexualities and the content as a positive measure, which the opposition thinks, even after quoting Kama Sutra and other things, they feel that this content, which they term as obscene, will only cause harm. The opposition here says that prostitution and people exploring their sexuality is bad, whereas I would like to remind the opposition that the first occupation in this world was prostitution. The opposition talked about third-party applications, which on every video streaming platform are stopped on utilizing screen recordings or other kinds of recording in causing any content leaks. And additionally, if the capitalistic model that we propose supports the creators in a way that it makes them economically empowered, what is the problem? The whip additionally said that the YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, these things would have a greater benefit if we use them. However, the opposition failed to recognize that all platforms except OnlyFans do not have a subscriber-based model where a larger sum of money moves to the creator and not to the platform. It is actually a way wherein the creators are empowered more. Talking on mental health, you might realize that these ways of earning, as well as the people viewing the content, actually supports their mental health, as it gives them relaxation from their regular life. Additionally, talking of selfie checks at a regular interval, I believe that technology today is as advanced that it can easily detect that if the selfie check was taken forcefully or it was taken by one's own consent. Talking about digital tracking, even if there is VPN, the police, the government technology is enough equipped, and it was equipped well in 2023 to track IP addresses of money frauds, and that is how they tracked it before 2020 to the location called Jamtara. And talking of freedom, I did not understand how the whip linked freedom to OnlyFans, wherein OnlyFans is the platform which is actually giving creative freedom to the creators and the viewers to choose what they wish to do. The opposition does have a lot of biases against the youth exploring what it is. Additionally, the way our whip has pointed out that these platforms, OnlyFans, gives the creators a unique narrative, as platforms like YouTube, Instagram and Facebook focus on a specific kind of content, a talent which not every individual possesses. However, they can utilize their creative talent using OnlyFans. This would therefore increase their financial and economic conditions and thus improve their quality of life. If they earn and if they contribute, and since OnlyFans would directly move to their accounts, it will also support the economy as a whole. Now, to conclude, I would just like to say that the opposition has a bias towards the orthodox society, which they have been referring, and they have been referring it to the East, whereas the government is moving towards equality, which has been practiced. Thank you.
To the semi-finals, you've been doing great over the past couple of days, and that's why you're here. So I feel like you must be having an idea or an overall assessment of how a parliamentary debate is supposed to function and how it is supposed to happen. So the first point that I'd like to make about the entirety of debate, so since the house was set up in 2030, I feel that there should have been a uniformity of speeches where you must have spoken either in present tense, like you should have spoken in present tense rather than saying in the future or like in the past or something like that. I felt like it was interchanging all the times. Even in one's own speech, like a speaker changed that multiple times itself. So that was something that I felt the first point of measure that I felt that this debate had. Secondly, this debate, like the motion in itself, like I'd like to commend the organizing team to bring such an interesting point of debate, because like it has various fronts of clashes, but since the theme was economic, I have wanted that the debate stuck to more of the economic side rather than going on all the various fronts, because like elaborating on this particular front would have been easier rather than making an entire different tangents of debates going all around here and there, trying to cover up all the points. Like it really brought about, like I felt various clashes were going on about here and there, and you were forgetting the main point of the debate, especially considering the theme. So I feel like maybe like mentioning those points were good, but sticking to the economic factor would have made the debate more important and more like, more significant, I say. Now coming to the individual speakers, so it was the work of the PM to set the house, set the motion into play, and which he did according to his will and his power, and he set the house in 2030 with an internet community as the stakeholders. He brought about a lot of points and various fronts, especially I liked all the points that he brought about. I feel just the fact that the model could have been brought about earlier into the play, because without the model the debate kind of lost its way in the earlier part of the entirety of the debate, because without the model, I feel, how would the other party actually continue? You have brought about all the various factors, all the various contexts, all the various points, all the various fronts on which the debate could have happened, on which the debate actually happened. But the main part, the model, I felt like you could have brought in it a bit earlier and elaborated on that, like how you want to sustain the model of the OnlyFans that you are supposed to propose.
So I actually
There is no follow-up on that debate.
So now coming to the leader of the opposition, I feel like leader could have started off by addressing the entirety of the house in a way that would have given the glance as to how the opposition views the entirety of the motion. You straight away started countering their points, which was good. Like you were trying to tackle their points, which was supposed to be done. But I feel like presenting a stance from the opposition was something that needed to be done. Like how exactly you view and how exactly is your actual stance. You were just countering their points, but what is your stance? That is something I was looking for. Moreover, the points you made were really good, especially like the various parts, and the actual part that I actually liked and which was really out of the box was the Islamic point and the Western and the Eastern approach, because that was something like, okay, you are taking an entire demographic of 6 billion people and then taking them into account, that how they would actually be the stakeholders to the debate. Next up, the DPM. So the DPM actually brought about the entirety of the debate back into the conversation as to how it is supposed to happen by considering the facts that were stated by the Prime Minister and then tackling the points that were made by the leader of the opposition. I liked how you actually tried to back the model that wasn't exactly elaborated in the PM speech. Also, you actually elaborated more upon what every point that was made by the PM. That is how I was actually expecting it to happen. Only thing that I feel that could have been better in your speech was like how exactly do you, like, you tackled them, you continued their points, but I felt like adding up of new points wasn't necessary. You already had a lot of points in which you could have debated upon. You could have elaborated that more and more, especially again I'd go back to the part of the theme of the debate was economic, so I would have more that you focused more upon the economic aspect rather than the cultural, social and all these aspects that were brought about to this debate. The deputy leader of the opposition again did a great job by putting in the government to the question, by questioning every single thing that was in the model, especially the selfie checks. You caught them by tail and then went on and on and on about it. Also, the point of third party application was very well made, because that is something that we have seen and have been using, so we know how it works and how it doesn't. So that was a point that really struck me. Also, a point that you were trying to make was capitalistic. Like you use this term capitalistic in the theme, so I like that. Like, okay, you are actually saying that okay, their model is entirely based on money mind and is not considering the other factors that are actually involved in the retrospective. Now to the government bit, I'd just say like you raised a lot of new points which is not supposed to happen by the government bit. Okay. I know like this topic had a lot to say, I know you had a lot to express, you had a lot to say, but your basic job was to just summarize the entire debate, back your own points and just address their points, and if you had something to say about this, you could have said. Addition of new points wasn't necessarily required by you, although I liked your points, but I feel like that wasn't really required. And lastly, the opposition whip. You tried to tackle every single point that was made, but I feel the tackling was a bit out of the way. I mean, I couldn't really understand the examples that you were trying to set, especially like one of the examples that you made was the right to freedom, right? I didn't understand the context, like how the right to freedom is being violated if one is constricted. I couldn't understand that point. And variously other points that were made, especially like YouTube, Insta, Facebook, you specified them as positive content creating social media platforms, and OnlyFans is negative. So what is positive and what is negative? So you could have stated like how these platforms are actually positive and how the others are negative, but again you couldn't have put this point because the web doesn't add up new points to the table. So now putting up about the POIs. First of all, the POIs were raised by the Prime Minister. I feel like that is not how POI is supposed to be raised. You just have 15 seconds for a POI in which you could have just stated, okay, to that point or on that point, I would like to state that question, that this is my question. You cannot tell them facts on a POI. That is not the point of POI. POI is supposed to raise point of information. If you have a query about something, just on that point, I would like to know this. Something that like that. Also, you accepted a POI about culture and you validated that by saying, okay, different cultures have. I feel like a retrospective could have been given that various individuals around the world don't have access to other sort of places where they can represent themselves, whereas this is a platform where one actually has that independence where they can represent themselves. So throughout the diaspora one can represent, and through that the culture is being represented. So that, although your point was very valid, this was also something that you could have added upon. So also your POI was great, like you raised a great point and you also accepted. Also the POI that was raised by the DLO, no, that was accepted by the deputy leader of the opposition. So I feel like what exactly was the POI and what exactly was the answer was on a completely different tangents, because like you said that economy is not about money, and then you said something about sex trafficking and minors and juvenile, which I feel like was very away from the entirety of the POI that was asked. And yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you.
Good afternoon to both the teams. First of all, again, congratulations for making it to semi-finals. So the motion of the House technically was the House supports the use of OnlyFans to make money for people. So now when you read these motions, there are 3-4 aspects which the government, there are burdens on the government to fulfill and there are burdens that the opposition must meet. So I think the government really screwed it up when they set the House. I think the setting of the House was not accurate. I mean, internet community is fine, but when you set a House in the future, it means that you're not confident about defending this motion in the present and you are trying to take a defensive stance in the future. It was a motion which probably warranted a definition challenge from the opposition, and a definition challenge in this motion maybe could have been an easy win for the opposition. However, since there was not a definition challenge, it is not right for us to go in that direction. However, you straight away put your team at a back foot when you put a House in the future and take such a defensive stance because you're not confident of defending. And the problem with setting houses in future is that there is no evidence, there is no data. Everybody's relying on assumptions about what technology, what data you're going to refer to in future. Second of all, I feel the speaker roles in this team was problematic because I really like the DPM, especially the DPM was a very stable and a very good speaker. However, the roles of the whip and the PM were problematic. The speaking style of the PM was more of a whip speech, and the whip was a very below average whip speech because none of the duties of a whip were fulfilled in the whip speech. Coming to content, the structure was very beautifully followed by the PM. Nevertheless, the House was set, the status quo was set. They tried to define what people in the motion to be as adult people was, but however, again, that was a very narrow definition because things on the internet are again used by everyone, and you had to actually give us a model. And like my co-ad said that the model came in very, very late. You had taken, I think, almost 3 to 4 minutes to mention the benefits which were necessary, but it could have come later from the DPM or maybe at the end of your speech, and the DPM could have continued with that. Instead, you spend your good amount of substantive speech in mentioning the benefits and left out the model which you mentioned in your extra 30 seconds, which really made the edges confused because we were not clear on exactly what the model is. You gave us words like selfie check and bots and this and that, how will you regulate content. You also gave a preemptive rebuttal on addiction, which is fine, but PM should technically, after your status quo, you should give me the model in clarity so that the opposition and us both are clear on what is it exactly that you're proposing, and then it could have continued with the benefits. I'll come to the opposition later. Moving on to the DPM. The DPM speech was actually extremely nice. I think out of the 6 speakers here, I really liked the DPM speech the best in these speakers. You did your duty as a DPM excellently. You built on the constructives of your PM. You rebutted whatever the LO said. You had points which were constructive. Also, you brought new points. You gave enough. You gave enough width for your PM to actually for your whip to actually take on the clashes and establish that you're a winner. That did not go well with the whip, but however, you did your job pretty well, and I have no negative comments about you. Even your reply speech was very decent. I really like the way you did it. Regarding the whip, you need to, I feel it's I do not know, you need to understand what the job of a whip is. Like, there were some new, I won't say ki, like Matt said that there were a lot of new points. There were a few points which were dragged on from your PM. There were a lot of repetition, but a whip should technically be identifying the clashes and telling the ads why the clashes fall on your side and why they do not fall on their side. I feel even if you try to do it in your own way, I do not think the structure was very clear. So a lot of points which you maybe tried to mention or which was there in your mind, it really did not come through. Maybe lack of words, lack of principle, whatever, but it did not really hit the ground with me personally at least. So I was not very satisfied with the Gov whip, but however, I think the DPM saved the day for the government. Coming to the opposition, again, like I said, your first challenge should have been like the way the house was set. Since the house was not set in the most ideal way, they had already taken a defensive approach. You could have been more aggressive, but instead you went on a further defensive approach. I think the first question that you should have raised, which the DLO actually raised a little later, was regarding the alternative sources of income and the need to promote OnlyFans. So unless you firstly challenge that, being a government, when you're promoting something like OnlyFans, it shows a clear failure in the government that alternate sources of employment and income are not being generated. I think that is the first and foremost point which should have been hit, and hit very strong by the DLO itself. It came in much later. However, what the LO did was, the LO pointed out that there are assumptions in the future since you set the motion, but again, you could have used these very points and told us that since this house is not set properly, so we should not be arguing on this matter as of it. You mentioned that perils of internet, violation, exploitation. Also from the opposition side, actually in the context of the motion, there was a full paragraph on how Andrew Tate functioned and how his entire gang of OnlyFans worked. I had removed that from the context just so that I wanted whoever would be opposing would probably bring that up and then cite that example. However, that example never really brought through. I mean, you gave examples of here and there. However, that was a very strong and contemporary and current example which could have actually hit through, and it actually showed how, like for example, when you mention legalization of prostitution, actually it's a very contentious issue because prostitution is technically legal. However, being a manager or being what so-called a pimp is technically illegal in India. So you can't manage prostitutes. You can only be your right. You only have right over your own self. You don't have right over others. So when you could have actually gone into a lot of constructive and given us a detailed analysis on how the exploitation can actually happen. Further, I feel there was need to understand the model of OnlyFans from the opposition side. However, since the government did not really go into how the subscription model is working, how it is happening, you could have actually shown us how the model is currently working, because future data we do not have currently working, and showed us the flaws in that. How is it that the subscription based model does not really bar any age limit? Anyone who has money can actually subscribe. Second of all, the quality checks which are there in OnlyFans right now are also pretty inadequate. The very good point which actually came later from the DLO, I think, was again regarding third party applications transferring content. Again, that was an excellent point. It could have been made again really strong by more constructive and more analysis, which was not there, but the point was well taken. There were slight other points on mental harassment and this and that. Those were fine. You would have also focused a lot on, you did focus on juveniles, but you should have focused a lot more on both aspects of juvenile. Firstly, juvenile content being uploaded, and secondly, juvenile content being monitored and not being accessed to the juvenile worker. That was not very clear. You did mention, but it needed more explanation and more clarification. Other points were fine. The op-whip was again, the op-whip speech was again a very, I do not know how to judge you, because it was a very unconventional way that you spoke, and again, the duties of the whip was again not fulfilled from your side as well. So, regarding the whip speech, I would say both the gov and op, both did a terrible job, I would say. I mean, it was not up to the mark at all from both the sides. Coming to the reply, I felt both the reply speeches were pretty strong. I mean, they gave a very emotive, but they had nice arguments in the reply. I felt you tried to cover everything which was coming from the government, same with the reply from the government side. However, I think the opposition could have picked up on one more important point when the DPM or the DLO in his reply, which was he spoke about this as an alternative mode of income, that you have a regular life and then you go to OnlyFans. But that is not what actually happens. When you have an OnlyFans account, you do not have a regular life after that, because the society recognizes you with that and your entire social life is technically screwed. So because you start to get identified in that sense, and your social life is kind of, that point actually never came through. So overall, I think this was not a very easy motion. It was kind of an out-of-box motion. I think the first motion which was there was a relatively easier motion which could have chosen, but okay, fine. It was a decent debate. I think the DPM and the DLO board did an amazing job, and I hope all the best. We'll release the result when all the 4 teams are here together.